Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Committee, Subcommittee. We are waiting for somebody to attend and we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. The first item is to elect a chair, and I ask for any nominations.
I'll nominate you, Councillor Williams.
Thank you.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Housekeeping first, and I'd ask Clerk Jill Hollyoak to read out the housekeeping notice.
Thank you. Please note this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair. For those in the room, please note if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of the building. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on laptops. Thank you.
Thank you. And have we any apologies?
We have no apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. I'll ask each subcommittee member in turn if they have any declarations of interest, starting with, well, I have none, so that's a start. Councillor Chapman-Law.
None here, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Sidaway.
No, none here, Chair.
Thank you. I now ask each participant to actually introduce themselves and state their role. Starting with myself, I'm the chair, Councillor Lawrence Williams, and a member of the subcommittee.
I'm Councillor Peter Sidaway. I'm a member of the subcommittee.
Councillor Chapman-Law, member of the subcommittee.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Councillor Howell and Richardson, who came as reserve members, and as they weren't required to participate, have now left. For the council, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Yes, Sarah Rogers, Principal Licensing Officer.
Thank you.
Joanne McNamara, Legal Advisor to the Subcommittee.
And finally, our clerk.
Jill Hollyoak, Clerk.
Thank you. At this point, we've asked the applicant, but the applicant hasn't actually arrived yet. We're proceeding 15 minutes late, having given them some time.
Yeah, I think it's probably useful just to point out that they indicated that they would be here by 15:15, so we gave them till 15:15, but there's been no further contact.
Thank you. And objecting for the police.
Good morning, Chair. Sergeant Gareth Gosling from Dorset Police's Drug and Alcohol Harm Reduction Team. I'm joined here with Vanessa Rosales, who is a licensing officer for Bournemouth Town Centre.
Thank you. Before I run through the procedure, can I check that all persons who have given notice of their intention to speak have been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw representation or wishes not to speak has been identified? I'll take that as read, thank you. I'll now explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing as follows. The licensing officer present will report. Questions of the licensing officer by all parties. Members of the subcommittee go first. Applicants may make their application. Questions of the applicant by all parties. Members of the subcommittee also to go first. Dorset Police will make their representations. Questions of Dorset Police by all parties. Again, members of the subcommittee will go first. All parties will be given the opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with legal advisor and the clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given on within the period of 5 working days, beginning the day of or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about the right to appeal as appropriate. Now ask all parties to confirm their agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations, starting with Mrs. Rogers.
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
And Mrs. McNamara.
Yes, Chair, that's fine, thank you.
And Sergeant Gosling.
Yes, that's fine, Chair. Thank you.
Assume Vanessa's also happy.
Yes.
Thank you. Please may I remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they've already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chair. There will be no cross-examination of parties. Now ask the licensing officer to present the report.
Chair, sorry to interject. I just checking the hearing reg. So you are able to hear it in the party's absence, but I think probably just for the record, you just need to indicate that's what you wish to do, given the fact that they're not here.
Colleagues, are you happy to hear this in the party's absence?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Over to you.
An application has been made to vary the current premises licence to enable the sale and consumption of alcohol at tables outside the premises. Currently, the premises are only permitted for on sales, meaning that any alcohol purchased inside the premises cannot be taken outside. There is a current pavement licence issued by Highways which permits the use of the pavement for tables and chairs, and currently food and non-alcoholic beverages can be consumed there. Conditions have been agreed with Environmental Health, which will only be applied to the licence should it be granted or part of. One representation was received from Dorset Police on the grounds that to grant the application would undermine the licensing objectives. No representations were received from any of the other responsible authorities or any other person. This application was originally adjourned from September for the applicant to produce a menu and ensure compliance with the conditions attached to the licence. Should the application be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with their licence, any conditions attached to it will be aware that any responsible authority or any other person may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions at this point?
No, thanks.
No? Okay. Somebody's just turned up outside. So we'll just pause for a moment. If
We're checking downstairs. It just so I've had occasions where I've been downstairs for a little while.
okay.
I'm trying to think of other ways to walk in and pass it to them.
Sergeant Gosling, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We find ourselves sort of unexpectedly perhaps giving you a little bit of context behind this premises, which I would ordinarily expect to come from the applicant, but to try and assist that in some way, I've been to this premises on a licensed visit, if you like, a compliance visit, and I would describe it as a fairly straightforward cafe, perhaps with at most 30 covers, I would say, not terribly huge, with a counter to one side. At the time of my visit, there was one member of staff. There weren't any tables and chairs outside, I don't believe, at the time of my visit, and there was only a handful of customers, I would say, at the time of the visit, which is sort of in the middle of the day. This premises has been established since around February this year, and during that period we have conducted a variety of visits for a number of reasons, as we do both with new premises and with premises in areas of high levels of demand. And unfortunately, during those visits, several resulted in breaches being identified, and we notified these to the business operators on the basis of, certainly if they are relatively low level, it's better to work towards improvement rather than look at enforcement or anything like that, or it's all about trying to support especially new businesses. However, despite this support, we were going back time and time again, and we're often finding the same problems, which is difficult because I'll just pause there.
we're actually at the point where Sergeant Gosling was giving his introduction. So I'm happy, if Sergeant Gosling is, that we'll go back to you if you so wish. So I'll just pause for a moment.
Chair, I'm more than happy with that.
Yeah.
Just to give them the opportunity to provide some context.
Okay, that's very fair. Thank you. Right. Good morning to you. If you use the microphone, can you please introduce yourself?
I'm James Andrews, acting as an agent on behalf of the applicant, attending in Mr. Tom Bollington's absence.
Okay. We've been through all the procedures, and we went past the point, but we're back to the point where you'll give your statement if you can, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are a number of issues raised by Sergeant Gosling and Louise Busfield of the operation of Tony's Cafe at 12 Westover Road. Primarily, I believe the first issue was that of the condition alcohol shall be served ancillary to food. It was felt that a apt provision of food was not given. There wasn't ample kitchen or an ample menu to serve function to this condition. Upon this being brought to our attention, we have updated and they have re-looked at their food offering and provided a new menu, which I had sent across yesterday. So I believe all parties should have that. A subsequent issue addressed was the fact that a DPS must be on premises at all times, which we absolutely understand, and DPS will be in the future. We hope that can be taken in good faith, that staff will be trained and a DPS will be on premises at all times. Yeah, I feel we addressed these concerns, and the applicant and as agents we trust that we can address any matters the police bring to us and ensure that these licensing conditions are adhered to strictly.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the applicant? Not at this point. Okay. In which case, it's over to.
Questions? Do you have any questions?
I was going to say over to you for any questions, but
No, we don't either.
okay. No, none from the licensing officer. In which case, I'll ask Sergeant Gosling if he'll please make his presentation.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'll start from the beginning as though I hadn't spoken before. So I'll start it off with the explanation that the premises here has been established since around February of this year. During that time and shortly after opening and establishing the licence, several visits were conducted to that particular premises by Louise Busfield and latterly by myself as well. And during those visits, several breaches were identified of conditions. And it was unfortunate that during those visits, unfortunately, there were repeated occasions of the same condition being breached. And that particular, we accept that sometimes there will be minor shortfalls that require some support, maybe some direction, maybe some clarification at times if it's not particularly clear to an operator. However, where there is an agent acting on behalf of the operator and where we've provided that support, often in writing in the form of a letter explaining the breach, we would expect those issues to be corrected immediately. And unfortunately, like I said, they weren't always addressed. The presentation that we've heard just now and the introduction of a new menu is welcomed. However, we must remind the members that whilst there is a condition relating to the provision of alcohol alongside food, food isn't the key issue here, and I don't want your focus to be away from alcohol, because that is the licensable activity that's most in concern here. Let's focus a little bit on Westover Road itself. As I've already explained in the supplementary report that was provided some time ago, there are some challenges in that area, and you can see that from the heat maps that have been provided, which aim to highlight where there are concentrations of reports of crime and disorder taking place over a given period of time. There is lots of work that's taking place to try and address that with ourselves in the police and our partners in the local authority and other partners as well. And that's to address the issue of antisocial behaviour and crime and disorder. I don't want to overlook the fact as well that we have the YMCA that's a little bit further down Westover Road, and that makes this area particularly sensitive due to the fact that there are residents there that do have issues with alcohol and that are in a recovery stage of that. Working with local businesses to try and resolve the problems is something that we're keen to do as well, and that's why it was felt that when Tony's Cafe was established, it was felt that it would be positive to the community, and the conditions that were agreed, and the fact that it was intended to be a welcoming environment, that was considered appropriate. But where it steps outside then onto the pavement, despite the fact that a pavement licence has been granted for the food, it's our belief and our view that to introduce alcohol to that area wouldn't necessarily be clear to other people who might be intent on essentially drinking in the street, which is something that we try and discourage, because it generally does it is generally associated with antisocial behaviour and has a detrimental effect on the area. And just lastly, we haven't had a great deal in the form of additional reassurance, but in our experience, it can be very difficult to control how that consumption is managed within that area and to prevent it leaving. And there is often a creep into areas around. And when you look at the heat map that is detailed within the supplementary, you'll see that you don't have to go too far to be in areas where we are currently experiencing relatively high levels of crime and disorder. And I will leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, so when you visited these premises, what sort of days are you going? What sort of time of day were you visiting? Sorry.
I don't remember the exact time of the day, but it was middle of the day, around lunchtime-ish.
The heat map is really interesting, and I guess that's a big part of your argument, isn't it? Are there any times of day associated with the heat map? Because typically, alcohol-related violence will be after this premises closes, wouldn't it?
It's interesting because it isn't always the case. There are areas that experience more issues to do with antisocial behaviour and crime and disorder associated with alcohol. Some experience the problems more in the daytime, and that's due to quite literally daytime begging and gathering of people who are street homeless and that sort of thing, and that is really visible to people that are particularly sensitive, understandably, to that type of activity, and we do get an awful lot of calls in relation to that, and a lot of work goes into as much into the daytime as one might perceive would be focused normally on the nighttime. So it does work across daytime and nighttime.
Thank you.
Everybody, wasn't it?
So I'm just confused slightly there. Which people are doing the drinking? Is it the homeless and the beggars, or is it the other people walking around that area?
We generally get reports of issues with groups of people who are either aggressively begging, and alcohol can be something that is around that, whether or not they are intoxicated at the time, or just consuming alcohol at the time. People then report it as alcohol related, and it's recorded as alcohol related. However, it's not. We don't generally get a report of somebody who might just be walking down the road with a can of beer or bottle of beer or whatever. It tends to be accumulations, which is why we then see it in these heat maps. It gives us a really good idea as to where the people are gathering, because that's where people are more sensitive, and that's where the reports are made.
And do you think there are other contributory factors since the start of the year, or is this the only thing that's changed?
It's really difficult to say. There are, I mean, year to year, things do change. Patterns of behaviour changed since COVID. The whole world around alcohol licensing and consumer behaviour has changed dramatically. Whether or not it is purely on the back of this, I don't believe that it's purely on the back of Tony's Cafe opening that's caused this. Because my experience of Tony's Cafe, as I explained right at the start, was that it wasn't terribly, it wasn't. There was a smattering of people in there at the time. It was all contained within, and I don't believe that it's necessarily a contributory factor. I can't evidence that one way or another, but to extend out onto the pavement would certainly not help matters and wouldn't help our efforts to address the problem that we've identified as there currently.
Can I ask? Okay, we just hang on to that. Can I ask the number? You've mentioned a number of infringements that you found when you were there that weren't taken care of. Can you give us an example?
So probably the example of one of the examples, I think it was we've got it here. Yeah, so it is detailed within, it's on page 3 of the supplementary, but one of those examples is the personal license holder being on the premises at all times. It was felt that is particularly important, so that there is a really clear understanding of what is needed to adhere to the license conditions in this sensitive area. On one of certainly the visit that I attended, I felt that whilst the member of staff was very polite, great customer service skills, etc., everything that you would expect, their knowledge of the license itself and the requirements was certainly lacking, which you would expect it to be for somebody who is recruited in that role of customer service. And that's why it's often beneficial to have somebody who has a proper accreditation or qualification to ensure that they have that understanding of the importance of meeting the conditions of a license.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I mean, so as you said, you expect a little bit of breathing room whilst they settle into the new premises, and that's fine. A bit of a learning process. You don't necessarily know everything when you first start up. I'm more interested in hearing what your experience has been dealing with the premises after giving this feedback, and what sort of response you've got, if any, and how willing are they to learn from their mistakes?
So the process, it's probably useful if I sort of explain the process. So when we identify a shortfall or a failing or a breach, call it what you wish, it's really, really important for me that we are transparent with that. because it's even though they might be minor, and we might even have actually overcome that issue, but it's to ensure that we're sharing that information with the licensing authority, and to make sure that we are being really clear that our expectations are that the compliance will be there during our next visit. We do send a formal letter notifying them that we've discovered a breach, and that gives them the opportunity then to rectify it, and that's after each visit. So you can understand from our perspective how disappointing it is to go to that effort, to do that, and then to still go back and identify that it's not been rectified. Now, we have had occasions, and Vanessa deals with the vast majority of the inquiries for BCP, if not all now. But we do have occasions when we might have a call on the back, and we do give our contact details at the bottom of the letter, just to invite, if there's some clarity required. And there has been some dialogue between ourselves and the premises operators, generally through their representative. But unfortunately, it's still led to more than one visit where the same issues have been identified.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, I've got a follow-up on that. Can you quantify that? How many letters have you sent? How many times have you revisited and found that something in the letter was then happened again?
Apologies, you have to bear with us a second. We do have the information, but it's marrying up when we've had a response and then trying to interweave it with the visits. So we've sent three breach notices to the representative of the applicant.
And do you know how many of those you've been back and the same thing has happened again?
So those three breach letters, I was present for the third visit. Louise conducted the second visit, and there was one common issue with regards to the issue that we brought up just now around the presence of a personal license holder, and that was common on all occasions. Okay. In respect of the other breaches, I'm not sure I'll be able to give you that right now. Yes, they were. Yeah, food. Yeah. So we were trying to, it is. I mean, I can't take it away from the fact that the food element has been. Sorry, just bear with me a second. Yeah, I think it is of course beneficial that in addressing the breach around the providing food alongside alcohol. So essentially, this premises doesn't become another bar along that area is really important to us. However, and that was certainly what the applicant wanted, hence the name cafe. It's intended to be somewhere to go and enjoy food and some drink alongside. But yeah, the issue, the main issue that we have is that because what we're talking about today is that encroaching out onto the pavement. I think from our perspective, we would need to see a period, probably 6 to 12 months, where we can see some true consistency in delivering what it is that's on their license currently. Before then, we would have the confidence to say how well could they manage that and not impact adversely on what it is that we're trying to deal with out in the street. The risk, of course, is if we don't get this right, it's just adding fire to our heat map. Pardon the pun. So our view is we need to get it right there as soon as possible. And once we've done that and established that and it's become consistent, that will give us confidence to be able to support this and work with them to achieve what it is they want to achieve. That would be our view.
Is there a minimum period of time you'd be satisfied with?
It's really difficult because there's nothing in the guidance to stipulate that at all. However, if you look at it as the fact that we've had to send 3 breach letters since February. This application was first made August, Sarah, I think. Was it August? Because the hearing was due in September. So within, between February and August, we've had those breaches. So we really need to see improvement over a sustained period of time. So to show that premises is properly established, I think before we would support extending that further.
Thank you.
Final one from me.
Yes, please.
I just want to clarify the difference between the issues with this premises and the breaches they've had, and the issue of allowing premises on Westover Road to have a license for alcohol on the street. So, are there other properties on Westover Road? I think there's one that might maybe not on the street, but it's open to it. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, there is Brass House that's a little bit further down the road, and there's a restaurant at the far end. Sorry, should I stop?
Mrs. Rogers,
I can confirm the numbers because I checked it before the hearing. So there's 13 licensed premises on Westover Road, and 7 of them are licensed for off sales.
Thank you.
So yeah, you've got that information. A lot of those premises, though, however, there are some off sales premises along there that have been granted, but the ones the larger premises, if you like, generally don't promote alcohol being taken out to the street, regardless of whether it's on their licence.
Thank you.
Mrs. McLean.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to check one thing on page 3 of your, or page 43 of the committee bundle, but page 3 of your submission. You refer to a visit on the 27th of August, and then further down, the initial subcommittee hearing was postponed, allowing the licence holder to make the necessary improvements. I'm just wondering if there's been any other visits since the 27th of August to establish whether those improvements have been made.
No, there hasn't been. No.
Colleagues, are we finished with questions?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's normal at this point to ask the applicant to ask any questions of the police. Have you any questions you'd like to ask at this point? Okay. In which case, I think it's for you to now put your case. Sorry, my apologies. Yes, Sergeant Gosling, would you sum up?
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be as quick as I can. Whilst we haven't conducted a visit to the premises since it was adjourned, we did provide the supplementary information to the applicant in early October to try and give them every opportunity to understand what it is that we are concerned about. We haven't had anything back in return until yesterday, which was essentially an email containing the food menu, but not a great deal else other than that, unfortunately. So it remains the case that we're not satisfied that the premises have delivered consistently according to their existing licence throughout the relatively short period that they've had it. So the options that you have available to you are to grant the variation as applied, and we feel that it would be inappropriate based on the fact that several breaches have been identified since February, and that there's therefore some work to be done, if you like, before we potentially make that problem worse, if you like, with our sort of efforts to educate within the resources that we've got, and that actually extending alcohol onto that pavement at the time that we are trying to rectify some existing issues around crime and disorder would likely hinder those efforts as well. So you do have the option as well to modify the variation application and perhaps apply other conditions as you see fit. We don't have any proposals to make in that regard, and of course it's welcome for you to create your own, but we don't have anything that we particularly offer at this time to help that position. So that leaves you with the only other option, which is to refuse the application. And in the absence of any information to the contrary, we don't believe that the position has changed from our perspective, and we would invite you to refuse the application. Thank you.
Application for the variation.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Mrs. Rogers, do you have anything? No? Okay. Sorry, at this point, would you like to sum up without repeating what you've already said?
Absolutely. So I feel that there have been some clear issues raised by Sergeant Gosling and the police, and that's been conveyed to us effectively. And we've taken our time. Well, the applicant has taken their time, and we're sure that they have addressed these matters in action rather than saying yes, we will address these. Things have been put in place, such as the enhanced food offering and staff being trained adequately. The surrounding issues on Westover Road, there's a real plethora, and that is of not the cause of these cafes. It's our attitude that we shouldn't be restricting these businesses trying to bring back some livelihood to a street which is riddled with antisocial behaviour, and instead we should be looking to enhance these businesses to counteract this sort of behaviour and the issues in the surrounding area. We hope that, and we'd be open to any conditions which would be offered to grant this. But I want to reiterate that we take on board seriously, and the applicant will be and has addressed the issues raised by the police adequately. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll now conclude the hearing. At the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and clerk to deliberate. The decision will be conveyed to you in writing as explained earlier. I'm now going to adjourn for a comfort break for 10 minutes at 11 o'clock.
It's 21 days from the date you get notification in writing, but that would all be set out in the decision letter as well.
Good morning and welcome back to this licensing subcommittee. We have a second application this morning, this time for Bournemouth Bargains, 214216 Old Christchurch Road. I'll now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their roles. I'm Councillor Lawrence Williams, Chair and member of the subcommittee.
I'm Councillor Peter Sidaway, member of the subcommittee.
Councillor Chapman Law, member of the subcommittee.
Thank you. And for BCP,
Good morning, Chair. Tanya Jardine, Licensing Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Joanne McNamara, Legal Advisor to the subcommittee.
Jill Hollyoake, Clerk.
thank you. And for the applicant,
Good morning, sir. My name is Philip Day from Lacey's Solicitors, and I'm here to represent the applicant and the proposed DPS, who is Mr. Veli Bulbul, who is sitting next to me.
thank you very much, Mr. Day, you're very welcome. And objecting for the police,
Still morning. Good morning, Chair. Gareth Gosling, Police Sergeant from Dorset Police's Drug and Alcohol and Harm Reduction Team. And I'm joined today by Vanessa Rosales, who will just be acting in a support capacity with me.
thank you. Before I run through the procedure, may I check that all persons have given notice their intention to speak have been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw a representation or wishes not to speak has been identified. I'll take that as read. I now explain the proposed procedure and the order of speaking for the hearing as follows. The licensing officer will present a report. Questions of the licensing officer by all parties, starting with members of the subcommittee first. The applicant will make their application. Questions by all parties, starting with the subcommittee. The subcommittee will be asked to consider going into exempt for the remainder of the hearing to consider representations of Dorset Police in view of information provided by supplementary submission. So I think we're agreed that
Chair, when we come to that point, we can then pass that
we
appropriate
will do.
resolution.
but having said that, we'll now go to the licensing officer.
We just, Chair, if we can just run through the rest of the procedure
Okay,
first, thank you.
all right. So Dorset Police will make their representations. All parties, all members of the subcommittee to go first. All parties were given the opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with legal advisor and the clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement on proposed procedure or make representations, starting with the licensing officer. Mrs. McNamara,
Agreed, Chair.
thank you. For the applicant,
That's agreed, sir. Thank you.
thank you. And Sergeant Gosling,
Agreed, Chair. Thank you.
thank you. Please may I ask all parties to speak, not repeat the information which they have already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions to be asked through the chair, and there'll be no cross-examination of parties. I'll now ask the licensing officer to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So an application on behalf of Ella Aria Limited was initially submitted by Lacey Solicitors on the 21st of August 2025. The licensing authority was subsequently made aware of an error in the application form regarding the premises address, making the application invalid. So the applicant's legal representative was advised to submit a new application with the correct address, which was received on the 8th of September 2025 and is the subject of consideration today. It is understood that during the consultation period for the original application, the applicant entered into mediation with Dorset Police, during which concerns and proposed conditions were discussed when the corrected application was submitted. The applicant included some of the conditions previously discussed with Dorset Police in the new application. The premises were previously occupied by a betting shop. The applicant now proposes to operate a convenience store with a licensed facility and has applied for a new premises licence permitting the off-sale supply of alcohol from midnight to 23:59 hours, which is 24 hours. The licensing office received one representation from Dorset Police on the grounds that granting the licence would undermine the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective. Throughout the consultation period and until recently, the applicants and Dorset Police have remained in communication and continued attempting mediation, resulting in a proposed reduction in operating hours to 0300 daily and agreement on various conditions. These are all detailed in the report and the supplementary documentation. However, agreement could not be reached regarding the Dorset Police request for the SIA security provision. The applicant has offered a condition requiring SIA provision based on a risk assessment, which members will note as a condition 2.3, section B of the operating schedule. But Dorset Police maintain that the location of the premises presents a significant risk for off sales until 3 a.m. without a dedicated security on a more regular basis. As outlined in my report, trading standards recommended the inclusion of a condition requiring NAPONS, which is no proof of age, no sale training, to help prevent unlawful alcohol sales. This recommendation reflects the challenges associated with the premises location on Old Christchurch Road. While the applicant did not agree to include this condition, trading standards did not object to the application on that basis. It's also relevant on this point of location to note that the premises are situated opposite an extremely busy nighttime venue. While the applicant has proposed a condition relating to the staff training and refusing sales to intoxicated individuals, members may wish to refer to guidance on responsible retailing for off sales and section 15 of the BCP Council's statement of licensing policy, and then just seek reassurances that the applicant has taken all that into consideration to mitigate any risks. No other representations were received from responsible authorities or members of the public, and members are asked to consider whether to grant the application should the licence be granted and the premises fail to operate in accordance with the licence and its conditions, and any responsible authority or other person may request a review at any time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Yeah, Councillor Chapman.
So in terms of off sales on there, it's a busy area at night. Can you just give me an idea of what sort of licensing conditions other similar premises along there have got? Is this in line with the others, or is it later? You know, especially in terms of the single cans and that sort of stuff.
I do have a list of the premises around the area. I can't give you the exact conditions for each one of them because I'd have to go through all them all, but it is each case on its own merits as well. That's the other thing to consider. They do have, just generally, I know that many of them do have conditions with regards to the cans and security, there is only, I think, one. As I say, it's only each case in its own merits that we have to base on this one, but they do have different, they're all very different because each application has been submitted by different applicants in different areas and different times. So it's difficult to compare, but I'd have to go through each one of them to check, I'm afraid, sorry. Thank you.
I'll just follow up on that. It's a really interesting answer on the security that only one of them, without having the detail, which you don't, why would one of them have security and others not? Is that because of incidents that would have been around that property?
It may have been, but I didn't look into the history of that particular one. Some of them do have like risk assessment. It all varies, and say each one. This one was a particular one that does require risk assessment at certain days, but it might have depended. I didn't look at the history as to why that one required and others don't. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you. So over to the applicant now, thank you.
Thank you. I confess that I've come into this really rather late in the day, It was only really on Monday of this week that I started to get involved with it.
I think
Mr.
it's just a
Day,
bit
I'm sorry.
premature. It's questions to the licensing officer.
Oh, sorry,
so
I do
no.
apologise.
Yeah,
No,
no, it's
no,
not your
my
no.
fault. Ash.
Sorry, I do apologise. No, I have no questions for her.
Do you have any questions, Sergeant Gosling?
No questions, Chair. Thank you.
Sorry we interrupted you.
You're
Back to you,
absolutely
Mr.
right. I'm getting a bit rusty.
Me too. Mr. Day, do you have any questions for the licensing officer?
No, I don't have any questions, and I'm in your hands.
Okay, would you continue with your presentation?
Let me
Thank you.
start again. Yes, I came into this rather late in the day due to the unavailability today of my two colleagues who have been dealing with the matter. I'm grateful to your licensing officer for outlining the history here. I would only add that after the first application was made, the police responded really quite quickly and suggested a number of conditions, some of which were then incorporated into the application that you are now considering. Discussions and mediation have continued throughout, the sticking point being this question of SIA security. Over the years, I've dealt with a number of applications, including several in Old Christchurch Road and around Lansdowne and down towards the bottom end of Old Christchurch Road. And whilst you deal with every application on its own merits, the reality of it is that it had become pretty well standard practice to offer an SIA condition that was based on a risk assessment, because of course things change. Sometimes of the year, places are very quiet, it's almost dead, there's nobody there. Other times of the year, it can be very busy and the risk of disorder increases and the like. Don't get the impression that there are no SIA staff along Old Christchurch Road, because the bars and pubs, by and large, do have SIA staff, and usually a minimum of two, and sometimes more than that, particularly as you get beyond midnight and into the early hours of the morning. Assuming that you're minded to grant this application, then it is a matter for you. I would suggest that what was originally proposed is both reasonable and proportionate, but we would not have an issue with you making it a condition. The door staff should be deployed on every Friday and Saturday night after 11 p.m. until the premises close, but also on Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and Sundays immediately preceding bank holidays. To have SIA staff on other days is, in my respectful submission, somewhat disproportionate and unreasonable, and goes to an extent contrary to the guidance that you have. Other than that, there isn't a vast amount that I can say about the original application. At this point, I need to be careful, but you will be aware that there is further information that has been provided to you by the police, which is not within the public domain. So I'm going to be very careful about how I deal with that. But the bottom line is that the police are now effectively saying, we don't think that the applicant should be granted a license. We don't think you should approve of the DPS. And we also effectively want to raise cumulative impact. Let me deal with that last one first. If you look at Appendix 3 of your papers, and on page 61, there is an early email there from Ms. Rosales, where the penultimate paragraph reads, whilst the applicant has offered conditions on their application and has reduced the licensable hours initially applied for during mediation, it is of the opinion of Dorset Police that it is not enough to mitigate the risk of having an off licence in the area until 0500 in the morning, 7 days a week. That was in September, on the 12th of September, and then on the 13th of October, following further exchanges, which I don't need to take you through, another email. I spoke to my sergeant earlier and discussed this application. whilst we appreciate that your client considered reducing the terminal hours, the location of the premises poses too much of a risk for an off-licence to be operating until 3 a.m. without security in place. In other words, if you give us the security, then we don't have a problem with the principle of there being an off-licence there. There is no cumulative impact policy, and the police accept that they don't have evidence to deal with it. I really don't like doing this, even though I've been a solicitor for over 40 years, but I'm going to quote some law to you, I'm afraid. Not much. But the first one is Section 18 of the Licensing Act, which relates to the determination of an application for the premises licence. And I'm sure you're familiar with all of that, so I don't need to go through all of it, but this bit. For the purposes of this section, relevant representation means representations which are about the likely effect of the grant of the premises licence on the promotion of the licensing objectives, blah, 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 if they relate to the identity of the person named in the application as the proposed premises supervisor, meet the requirements of subsection 9, and the rest of it's not relevant. Subsection 9, the requirements of this subsection are the representations were made by a chief officer of police for the police area in which the premises are situated. I entirely accept that Sergeant Gosling may not be the chief officer of police, but he's authorised to act for the chief officer, so that's fine. But include a statement that due to the exceptional circumstances of the case, he is satisfied that the designation of the person concerned as the premises supervisor under the premises licence would undermine the crime prevention objective. I don't see any such statement anywhere. What exceptional circumstances? This is a perfectly ordinary application. There is nothing quite similar with regard to the designation of the applicant. But what could happen here, what could have happened, I could have made this application for the premises licence. I would like to think that nobody could come up with a good reason to say that I shouldn't have a premises licence. So I get granted the premises licence, and I then put in an application to transfer it to the current applicant. Then section 42 kicks in, and what that has to say about it is this. Where the chief officer of police notified under subsection 5, in other words, they've been told about the application, is satisfied that the exceptional circumstances of the case, same wording, as such that granting the application would undermine the crime prevention objective, he must give the relevant licensing authority a notice stating the reasons why he is so satisfied. So basically, the same sort of rule applies. But there is no such notice that has been given in this case. So my submission will be that there is no reason why you cannot grant this licence subject to appropriate conditions. And on that one, technically trading standards haven't made a representation, therefore you shouldn't consider it at all. If you are minded and you have the power to do it, if you so choose, what conditions you attach are a matter for you. You don't have to accept what's already been mediated. You can cross some of them out. You can add some more. And if you want to add one relating to trading standards and their training, then I wouldn't have an issue. Can I then take you to the guidance? And the current guidance, paragraph 8.101, this again talks about exceptional circumstances, but this again is the transfer of the licence, because I reiterate there's nothing similar on an application for the grant, and it asserts in exceptional circumstances where the chief officer of police believes the transfer may undermine the crime prevention objective, the police may object to the transfer, blah, 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 and then such objections are expected to be rare and arise because the police or Home Office Immigration have evidence that the business or individuals seeking to hold the licence or businesses or individuals linked to such persons are involved in crime or disorder or employing illegal workers. There is nowhere evidence that asserts that to be the case. The police have also rightly pointed out and quoted what is 912 of the guidance. The police have a key role in managing the nighttime economy and should have good working relationships with those operating in their local area. The police should usually, therefore, be the licensing authority's main source of advice on matters relating to the promotion of the crime and disorder licensing objective. And then a bit more, which I'm not going to read. And then it remains incumbent on all responsible authorities to ensure that their representations can withstand the scrutiny to which they would be subject at a hearing. In other words, you need evidence, and that is clearly established elsewhere. Simply because the police say we're not happy, we'd rather you didn't do that, does not give them carte blanche, because if it did, then we wouldn't need to trouble you with a hearing, because it would be a matter for the police rather than the licensing authority. Just a couple more. The amendment to the basis upon which the police objected was literally at the last moment. And you might like to ask your own questions as to how and why that came about. 932 does say, if the application is amended at the last moment, the licensing committee should consider giving other persons time to address the revised application for the hearing. It has been a bit of a rush, to put it mildly, but we have done that. A final reminder from the guidance, not that you need it, because you're well aware, 943, the authority's determination should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and proportionate to what it is intended to achieve. And that is particularly the case with regard to the proposal with regard to SIA security. Demanding 365 days a year is not appropriate, nor is it proportionate, and it doesn't take into account the commercial reality of the situation. It's horribly unaffordable. There it is. So unless I can assist you further, or indeed Mr. Bulbul, those are my representations in support of this application. We invite you, as I said in my skeleton argument, and I'm not going to go into why it was headed as it was originally. We invite you to grant the application as amended with regard to the hours and the conditions, and subject to, in your discretion, what you consider to be an appropriate and proportionate condition relating to the provision of SIA staff. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Colleagues, do you have questions for Mr. Day?
I have one, yeah, if I may. You've suggested the addition of a clause with SIA security Friday, Saturday, and Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. That. Would you still be proposing a risk assessment for any other days based on the experience as time progresses?
The short answer is yes, but let me also be frank with you. If you are minded to grant this licence subject to a condition that's specified on particular days, then Mr. Bulbul would comply with that, but confident that it would prove unnecessary, that there weren't any issues or whatever, then we would be considering coming back in 3 months, probably 6 months' time, where there is an established track record, and saying, right, here's an application to vary, this is what hasn't happened, so can you please relax that condition? But we wouldn't go beyond we wouldn't go to the point of wanting to get rid of it entirely. It would be on the basis of risk assessed.
Just to clarify, because there's been lots of sort of to and fro in. So page 53 of the bundle prepared for this, so that's page M of the actual application. At paragraph 2.3, there's reference to the risk assessment. So you're suggesting if the licence were granted, that remain in with an additional paragraph to deal with Friday, Saturdays, bank holidays, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. Is that what?
What I'm actually asking is that you grant an application with the condition as per 2.3. However, if you think you need to go a bit further than that, then rather than go the whole hog for every day of the week, then I would suggest the Friday, Saturday, etc. But then on the basis that confident that there wouldn't be a problem, it would turn out that that was not necessary, it was disproportionate, we may well come back to vary it to get rid of the extra bit so that we're simply left with 2.3.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Not from me, thank you.
No questions. Sergeant Gosling, do you have any questions?
No questions, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. In which case, we'll go below the line at this point. Under section 14 in brackets 2 of the Licensing Act 2003 hearings, regulations 2005, with regard to section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting of the following item of business on the grounds that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs such interest in disclosing the information, and that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1, 2 and 7 in part 1 of the schedule 12A of the Act. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Go below the line.